This is a conversation with a father and his child, mainly held on social media because at one time that was the only way the child wanted to communicate. Now, can I ask you people a question? How do you communicate these days with your friends and with your family? Yes, thank you, Lucy, for that contribution. Now, ladies and gentlemen, technology has provided us with so many forms of communication. Skype, Zoom, Teams, Twitter, text, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, TikTok, and others I haven't even heard of yet. They allow us to communicate with friends and loved ones instantly, anywhere in the world. Everyone has a smartphone these days and uses it all the time. Is this good? I ask myself. On one hand, possibly, but on the other, well, look at people together in cafes and restaurants. Are they talking to each other? No, they're looking at their phones. People don't walk down the street anymore looking around, looking at people, the views or the architecture. They're looking at their phones. At night, you see them walking down the road with their faces lit up by the glow of the screen, white faces floating through the night streets like somebody in a Hieronymus Bosch painting. Yes, Lucy is such a tease. But do we talk? What's happening to our language? We used to have the most expressive, beautiful language. Is it surviving this text speak bastardization? It has wonderful words and phrases that can paint beautiful pictures and emotions for people. Yes, thank you, Lucy. But she is right.
Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. But thy eternal summer shall not fade.
It seems we have a ghost in the machine. Hello, Shakespeare, one of the best users of our language ever. Now, believe me, ladies and gentlemen, there'd be no need for Tinder or any other dating apps if everybody could use those sorts of words. Shakespeare has the most wonderful language, full of expression, full of meaning and clarity. It helps you understand life. He puts his characters in difficult circumstances and allows you to understand everything. Family stuff. Do families talk anymore? Do we sit down and have dinner together? Do we talk when we're sitting at those meals? Does your family look like this? Mine does quite often. And what do we talk about? Do we even talk about what we did in the day? But is there chance of us talking about real things? About how we feel about things, about how we feel about each other, about politics, about life, about books, music, the big things in life. Coronation Street. How about sexuality? Not that I ever discussed that with my parents. It's not just families, it's friends communicating with each other. Do you know, whilst our daughter was at college, we paid her mobile phone bill, and in nearly 3 years, she hardly had a conversation on the phone. She did several thousand texts a month instead. So why don't we talk anymore? What are our excuses? Being too tired to engage our brains? Embarrassment? Not wanting to look someone in the face? Not wanting to have to tell somebody something personal face to face? Not wanting to worry them? Not wanting to face the consequences of what you've got to say directly? So what do you do instead? Go on Twitter, Facebook, and text. So, what's going to happen to families? What's going to happen when something does happen that requires those discussions? When you need the words to communicate, to show emotion, to share? Certain things always will happen in families: death, divorce, illness, change. You can't hide from these. As a family, you're sharing them, so you've got to talk about them. That's the only way to make sense of them, to find a way through them, to achieve an understanding and a balance. Yes, thank you for your contribution, Lucy. Some people grow in different directions. Some people grow and change in ways you don't notice immediately. You finally become aware of changes. Suddenly, someone has changed in a way you've never imagined. Suddenly, you can't understand what's happened and where you are, and you look around for ways to help. But help requires words, and words require an understanding. Words require practice and use to be able to get everything you need from them. Words by themselves are of no use whatsoever. Shakespeare's actors can't learn their lines just by rote and expect them to work on stage. They have to understand the character, the play, the context before they can paint the picture for audiences to understand. There we are, the super kids. Anyway, enough about communication. What's happening to us? Well, let's start at the beginning. I was married and happy after 30 plus years, and believe me, that cannot be achieved in a communication vacuum. We had 3 children. My eldest child was running his own business, the middle one was at college, and everything was fine with the world. And then, of course, there was the younger one, on whom hangeth the tale, as Shakespeare would say. Like the others, she's grown up doing all the normal things: friends, hobbies, stuff, furry cats. Then she was having problems at school, not going in, missing coursework. You ask her questions, you sympathise, you try and talk to her to find out what's wrong. But she's cutting herself off from us and everything that seems normal. She will do monosyllabic chats about inconsequential stuff, but only about that. Do you know, it was like going whale watching. The occasional glimpse of a little bit of the animal, but it's mostly invisible underwater. And she takes to communicating only on a laptop and on a phone. We try to make her life more interesting, create outings, take her on holiday. One holiday, we insisted she come with us to Cornwall for a week. She did like it in the end, a bit. Her pleas that she'd be left at home in that little girl voice carried a lot more weight than a screaming fit would ever do, especially as it lasted all the way there in the car. The doctors eventually diagnosed ADHD and put her on medication. What was she doing in the meantime? Well, she loved her art, and to our untutored eyes, it was wonderful, even if we think it's a bit dark. That was a painting of the interior of a haunted theatre in Beckenham, sadly now closed. But she can't or won't meet the deadlines at school. She's on a computer and phone 18 hours a day, shut in a room, watching videos on Facebook, on whatever, talking to her friends. She seems to be talking to a select bunch of friends on there, but she isn't talking to us. And she's changing as well. Her beautiful long hair is all gone, all cut short, and she's experimenting with all sorts of colours, school permitting. Dresses and skirts have been swapped for jeans and leggings, and piercings appear in ears. And only ears, I hope. There's no mention of boyfriends. We let her change from sixth form to a local art college to do her A-levels, where she seemed to relate to her friends more, but she still can't do her coursework on time or even attend college often enough. The thought that she's wasting everything, her future, the wondering what she's going to do if she doesn't develop in the usual way, for want of a better word. College first, then work, and then family. Isn't that what everybody has to do? Isn't that what everybody wants? Well, certainly that's what parents want for all their children. Isn't that the only way that people manage and get on in the world?
I would my father looked but with my eyes.
Thank you, Shakespeare. Not helpful. But how else can people be secure in the world? Isn't that the one thing that all parents wish for their children? Security, money, happiness.
Our wills and fates do so contrary run that our devices still are overthrown. Our thoughts are ours, their ends none of our own.
And quite right, Shakespeare. I'm sure a lot of parents feel just like that. Well, she gets her A-levels in the end. We're so proud and so pleased, and she wants to go to university. She chooses a degree in art, specialising in illustration. And I'm thinking at least that's a more commercially useful degree. Visions of a more secure future. And university starts. But after a while, she's falling into her old ways. She's unable or unwilling, I don't know which, to go in, saying she's sick, falling behind the coursework again, taking a term off to sort herself out, and then another term, and then she's not going back. And I've suspected all along there's something else happening, but what? She isn't giving many clues so far as to what else is happening to her. She doesn't talk, well, at least not to us, so we don't see it first when it rose to the surface. I suppose the hair and the clothes were a suggestion. She never excluded us from her Facebook account. Well, she may well have had others for her friends' private use. And amongst the pictures of her pets and her hair and the useful Facebook fluffy cats, there were references about gender equality. Well, that's fine, that's healthy growing up stuff. And then there were references to lesbianism and gayness. Again, nothing to worry about, just growing up stuff. But it's good to know she's open-minded and politically aware.
It is a wise father that knows his own child.
Well, King Lear certainly didn't know his Shakespeare, did he? Just like me, seemingly. She's still not talking to us about anything meaningful. All we can do is comment on her Facebook posts or like them. Not easy to communicate this way. Does the like button actually mean you approve of the sentiments? Or that you like the attached photo? Or does it mean this is the only way we can communicate with you, so of course we'll like it? She's changed her name too on Facebook. Rory. Is that a girl's name or a boy's name? Could be either. What does it mean? A new name for a new start? That sounds positive. The new Rory. And then she's insisting at home she be called Rory. What does this mean? Is this an identity she can be happier in or one to hide behind?
What's in a name? That which we call a rose, by any other name, would smell as sweet.
Well, a lot's in a name, Shakespeare. It provides your identity and gender to any who need to know you. Like employers. She won't talk about it in any detail again. We have to rely on what appears on Facebook to work out what on earth she's thinking. Started talking about wanting to be a boy. about feeling like she is a boy and not a girl. Well, that's not quite the new stars I was hoping for. But how does she mean wanting to be a boy? Playing a boy? Being a boy? And what does that mean for her? And what does that mean for me, for us, for the family? What do we tell people? What do I tell my mother? And what do we do? I don't know. Did we do anything wrong? Is it all our fault? Is it our fate? Was it in our stars? Mind you, it's not the sort of stuff that most astrologers predict in the newspapers, is it?
This is the excellent foppery of the world, that when we are sick in fortune, often the surfeit of our own behaviour, we make guilty of our disasters the sun, the moon, and the stars, as if we were villains by necessity, fools by heavenly compulsion, knaves, thieves, and treachers by spherical predominance, drunkards, liars, and adulterers by an enforced obedience of planetary influence.
And that's certainly not what astrologers say these days in the papers, is it? All right, Lucy, it wasn't my opinion. But I haven't any experience. I've got no knowledge about any of this stuff at all. I don't know. Is she going to be like one of those Bangkok ladyboys or that person on Eurovision a few years ago? That's the sum total of my knowledge about this sort of stuff. Lucy, it's not my fault. I just don't understand. I don't know. Has she gone off being a woman? Mind you, I do know that Shakespeare had his views on women.
Could I find out the woman's part in me? For there's no motion that tends to vice in man, but I affirm it is the woman's part, be it lying, note it, the woman's, flattering, hers, deceiving, hers, lust and rank thoughts, hers, revenges, hers, ambitions, covetings, changes of pride, disdain, nice longing, slanders, mutability, all faults that name, nay, that hell knows. Why? Hers.
Thank you, Shakespeare. Again, that is not helping at all. That's not me, Lucy. Again, it's Shakespeare. And yes, believe me, things can escalate quickly.
The raven himself is hoarse that croaks the fatal entrance of Duncan under my battlements. Come, you spirits that tend our mortal thoughts, unsex me here, and fill me from the crown to the toe, top full of direst cruelty.
That's even less helpful, Shakespeare. Let's hope she doesn't go down Lady Macbeth's route, eh? That was Shakespeare again, Lucy. It's not me. I'm trying to understand. We need to talk. I need to understand, Lucy. I need to try and understand anyway. I just can't let this opportunity pass me by.
There is a tide in the affairs of men, which, taken at the flood, leads on to fortune. Omitted, all the voyage of their life is bound in shallows and in miseries. On such a full sea are we now afloat, and we must take the current when it serves, or lose our ventures.
Not helpful, William. That was Brutus planning to kill Caesar. Hardly appropriate at the moment. But then again, is he right? Lose our ventures, lose our child, lose our Lucy, or lose our Rory. How do I approach her? Is she going to talk after all these years? Is she going to stay in her shell? Is she going to throw a strop? How do I ask her? What do I ask her? How do I tell her what I'm feeling? And How exactly am I feeling? I don't know, come to think of it. How do I look her in the eye and ask all the questions that are running around in my head?
Thus conscience does make cowards of us all, and thus the native hue of resolution is sicklied o'er with a pale cast of thought. And enterprises of great pith and moment with this regard their currents turn awry, and lose the name of action.
Shakespeare, that is true. I've got to step up and do this. Her computer is in her room. She's relating to that machine quite easily. But why can't she relate to me? She's in control of it. She knows what it's all about. The whole world, her whole world, is in that machine. She can talk to anybody in the world face to face. She can play games with anyone in the world on it. She can go on Google Maps and visit any street anywhere in the world. She can look through thousands of webcams all over the world and watch what's happening there in real time. She can write blogs about anything at all and put them online, and anyone in the world can read them. She can use it to make people believe anything she wants. But then again, other people can use it to make her believe whatever they want too. But she can share her opinions, her news, and her photos for the whole world to see. She can communicate with the world, and the world can communicate with her.
Oh, wonder! How many goodly creatures are there here! How beauteous mankind is! Oh, brave new world that has such people in't!
Yes, Shakespeare, mankind would indeed be beautiful if you grew up on an island with your dad, a fairy, and an ogre. It's not quite the same on social media these days. But only if I could get inside there, her computer. Perhaps I could find out all about her. Perhaps I could talk to her from in there through this. I wouldn't actually have to talk to her at all. Or would I? All right then, perhaps not. But can she communicate with me? Can she talk to me face to face? Will she talk to me after all this time? Is it up to me to initiate all of this? Or is it up to her? Can I help her? How can I understand her? How can I help her move forward? Where's all this actually going to go? Do I guide her? Do I just try to protect her? I am a father. Or do I need to guide her back to normality? Sorry, Lucy.
Earth has swallowed all my hopes, but she is the hopeful lady of my earth.
He is indeed. Thank you, Shakespeare. But where do I start? Do I go on the internet and research that way? Let's try. Transgender. Oh my God, that shouldn't have been on images, should it? So it comes down to talking, I suppose. But is she really going to open up to me? What do I ask her? Is she sick? Can she be treated? Is it a physical thing? Is it a mental thing? Should I be talking her out of it, or should I accept her for what she wants to be? Ah, point taken, Lucy. But she must have done lots of reading on the internet. All right, so let's see if I can get some background stuff. And perhaps Google a little bit better. All right, Google, let's see. Transgender. Well, Google's got 58 million hits. There are government departments, organisations, charities to help and guide. There are blogs, there are Facebook pages, there are YouTube channels. There are people relating their stories in video and word and sound from all over the world, from every country in every language. But where do I go to in all of this? Who can I trust out of all these people? Or do I give everyone a try and then trust my own feelings? 58 million hits. I didn't realise this was so widespread, so popular, so much a thing. Why haven't I heard about it before? Advice on everything here, from medical changes and surgery and workshops and stories of other families and people caught up in the same situations. Workshops, support groups. Oh dear. As for me, no. Do I go to these workshops on offer? Will I be embarrassed? Yes, I will be embarrassed. I'm a white, middle-class, middle-aged male. Of course I'll be embarrassed talking about all of this stuff. So I've got all this information. I can read and hear about all sorts of experiences. I can hear about other parents' experiences, how they coped and if they coped. So how do I cope? This isn't about me at all, though, is it? It's about her, him. Well, not really. It's about me too. My baby, my child, about us, about the family. It's about how we relate to each other now. It's about how we all live together, about how we understand each other.
Children wish fathers looked but with their eyes. Fathers of the children, with their judgment, looked. And either may be wrong.
Thank you, Shakespeare. That is true. But do fathers look through different ideas to mothers? And how's my wife looking at this? How does she feel? What's she doing about it all? And why isn't she talking to me about it? And why aren't I talking to her about it? Is she giving me space to sort my own mind up about it? And what about the other kids doing about it? And why aren't we all talking about it? I'm getting the impression nobody's talking about it. Is it because they are totally at ease about it? Or is it because they just don't want to talk about it? Okay, Rory, so it is all about communication. I finally managed to prove it to myself. The whole family needs to talk openly about these things.
Speak what we feel, not what we ought to say.
Aye, and there's the rub. As I said, I'm white, middle-aged, male. We're programmed not to talk about this stuff, aren't we? We talk about cars and football and golf and barbecues. But why don't men like talking about this stuff? Why don't we engage in the serious stuff? Why are we so reserved? Do men talk about sex and relationships to anyone? To be honest, do men talk about personal stuff at all? Here I am in the same situation. I've got issues I need to talk through, and I can't or won't, or I don't know. Do you think it's because society has pigeonholed us into acting a part, and that part is all we can be?
The world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances. And one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages.
Well, in my case, Shakespeare, my parts so far have been a son, a brother, a lover, a husband, and a father. And did I talk in all those parts? Well, not as a son, not as I'd like to have done, and now my father's gone, it's too late, and I just can't have a repeat of that situation. But God Almighty, some things just struck me, and I can't get my head round this. Now, with all my information and all my many years' experience, but what would I be doing in his situation, growing up in my time? There was none of this. There was nothing in the papers, nothing on the telly. It wasn't talked about. How would I feel locked in my own skull with a wrong body feeling trapped, wrong, weird, queer, I suppose? What a terrible situation to be in. No one to talk to, no one to share with, and nobody to express myself with.
To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the stings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles and by opposing end them.
I can't lose Rory over this. I can't miss this opportunity. As a lover, I must have communicated well somehow at some stage because I turned into a husband and then into a father. I have to act on it now. So one day I started a conversation. All right, all right. I was nervous, so I chickened out of facing him and got on WhatsApp instead. Oh, they'll be difficult. Dearie me. Well, I'm not at all sure the English language is designed for any of this. Even with men having to play women on the stage, I bet Shakespeare would have had trouble sorting all of this out.
How sharper than a serpent's tooth it is to have a thankless child.
Well, thanks for nothing, Shakespeare. This is beyond me. I'm trying, for my sake and his. It's not something I grew up with. Being gay is a bit different still. I was brought up when it was just religion, Catholics versus Protestants. As for sex and gender differences, well, it seemed they hadn't been invented then. It wasn't talked about. It was hardly read about. If it was on the telly, we weren't even allowed to see it. What an amazing history lesson. There must be countless other people ignored by history. And everyone these days thinks it's a new phenomenon, but it's not. I know now. Thanks, Rory. But when I was younger, these subjects didn't get into libraries. They didn't much get into the Guardian newspaper. They weren't much featured on the telly. And if they were, there was no reason to take note of them. These things happened to somebody else. I mean, it's a big new thing to get my head around. It's confusing. It's worrying. It's to do with sex. I know Rory's right, but he's got to understand that my generation aren't used to talking about sex. Sex in either the gender word or in the procreation word or even in the, I don't know, the fun word. Our generation didn't talk to our parents about it, and they certainly did not talk to us about it. I do remember, though, my grandparents telling me, and I've got no idea in what context this came about, that they had never ever seen each other naked. Imagine that. You see, sex was not talked about. It wasn't read about. It was done at night, undercover, privately, with the lights out. And certainly no one talked about gender related matters. Well, everyone may mean Rory's generation, and Rory's press, and Rory's internet, and Rory's social media and stuff. But we were brought up in an age when swearing wasn't allowed on the telly, and being gay, as he quite rightly pointed out, was illegal when you went to prison for it. The world has changed so much, and it's difficult to change with it. I've been doing more reading of my own, and quite honestly, I'm not happy about what I'm reading. I look on Facebook and Twitter and the like, and the vast majority of posts are, quite frankly, disgusting. They're hostile, they're vile in some cases. There is support, but it's not easy to find. Even in the mainstream press and on the telly, it's not much better. Some people and commentators are getting hysterical in their attitudes. They think they're a danger to society. They're sexual perverts, immoral, and leading children astray.
Rumour is a pipe blown by surmises, jealousies, conjectures, and of so easy and so plain a stop, that the blunt monster with uncounted heads, the still discordant wavering multitude, can play upon it.
See, even Shakespeare knew all about social media, even those 100 years ago. But there are countries in the world where you can be executed. What's as bad as that is that trans people in this country are being assaulted, attacked, killed. Are you sure you can cope living in that world? Are you strong enough? Wow. Okay. Rory, I am. I am with you and I always will be. Hang on, Rory. You want testosterone therapy to turn you into a man, while I have hormone therapy to reduce my testosterone to try and control my prostate cancer. So you're going to get bigger and stronger and more masculine and more hair, while I go bald, get a squeaky voice, man boobs, and fatigue. Well, I've certainly picked the short straw in this one, haven't I? Oh my God, my little baby girl or boy is going to be cut. You're going to cut yourself for this? Oh my God. I didn't know, Rory. I didn't understand. It's okay. Just a bit of a shock. Good. I'm glad about that.
This above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow as the night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man.
Shakespeare is quite right, and so are you, Rory. Okay, now there are going to some big decisions here, Rory. It's good you're wanting the counselling, and let's all keep on talking through it now. Look, I just want to see you're safe. It's going to be a long road for you, and us, I suppose, as well. But we will always be here for you.
I have done nothing but in care of thee, my dear one, thee, my daughter. Son!
Indeed I have, Shakespeare. Indeed I have, Rory. And text and email and Skype and Facebook and Messenger and WhatsApp even. Any way I can be there for you, but please, can we just talk from now on? I'm not promising the world to you. There's a lot for me to work out, and there's a lot for me to understand. So, Rory, let's not keep things quiet anymore. Let's not ignore issues. Let's not hide things. Now, I'm sure, very sure, we're going to have rows and discussions in the future about all sorts of things. But let's talk and let's share. Deal, Rory?